Good evening. I am Kayleigh Darling, like Vihan said, and I am super excited to be here this evening and share with you something that I've been mulling over for a few years now. I am by no means an expert in this topic, but it's something that I'm hoping, like they said, starts a conversation and starts a dialogue or a discussion where we as Americans can dig in and maybe self-reflect a little bit. So, like Vihan said, I am an English teacher specializing in special education here at Emerson, but before that, I taught in Uganda for 2 years, and it was amazing, and I absolutely loved it, and I want to go back all the time. But there was a little bit of culture shock, as one might assume. Those being the driving. Ugandans drive on the left side, which means you get into the car on the right side. I can't tell you the number of times I went to the wrong side of the car to drive. And then the electricity kind of would go on and off a little bit, especially in the rainy season. It always came back on, but a strong wind could really knock it out. The biggest one was no AC, especially living in Texas. It is hot here. I value my air conditioning. Thankfully, Uganda was not as hot, but the no air conditioning was still pretty toasty at 80 degrees outside. However, the bigger shock for me was when I moved back from Uganda in December of 2020. I moved there in January of 2019. I don't know if y'all remember what was going on in America from 2019 to the end of 2020, but I came back to a different country. And I am still recovering in some aspects. Initially, the things were that, yes, Americans are loud. We are all loud. We don't even realize it. I think our ears are kind of used to that level, that volume, and we just talk a lot louder. The second thing was that Target is bright. The lights were insanely overwhelming, and the options were overwhelming. We had toothpaste, we had toilet paper in Uganda, and that was good enough. I came back and there's 100 options for toothpaste, and decision fatigue was real. But the bigger thing that I noticed was a loss of community in American culture. That loss has infiltrated different aspects of our culture that I kind of want to shed a light on. There we go. Those that I've seen are the family, careers, and then education as well, especially as a teacher. That one is close to my heart. Starting with families, the first thing I noticed is that there are not multi-generational homes. There are probably some. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but as our culture as a whole doesn't live in multi-generational homes, people aren't getting different perspectives from different points of view, especially with our children. They're not seeing us, the middle generation, getting wisdom from the generation above us. Our houses aren't designed to hold multiple generations of people. Secondly, I'm in my mid-30s. A lot of my friends are having their first or second or third babies, and I just noticed a lot of them struggling with postpartum depression, struggling with how to navigate wanting to have a career and wanting to work 40 hours a week and being fulfilled in that career and enjoying it, while also wanting to raise their children in a loving and secure and safe home. This graph is from the American Journal of OBGYNs, and it's only from 10 years, 2010 to 2021, and it is divided by race, but overall there has been a 10% increase in postpartum depression in the last 10 years, with the highest increase being 280%. I genuinely think that that is because we are not focused on community and that mothers are expected and told that you should be able to do this on your own. I'm arguing that we aren't made to function that way. Women do it all the time, but I don't think that that's what it should be or how it should be intended. There's a reason that for the idiom that says it takes a village, because it genuinely does. And I saw that in my time in Uganda. To give you a little bit of context, the way that schools work in Uganda is they go to school, the school year starts in January and goes through December, and they have terms. They have 3 terms, and so they go to school for 3 months, and then they go home for a month, and then they go to school for 3 months, and then they go home for a month. These kids knew that they had a space in their community that was vital and needed. They also knew that there was a vacuum created when they left. All of the schools are private schools, and most of the schools, the secondary schools, are boarding schools, which means the kids leave. These kids spent the weekends going back out to their village and helping people in their community that needed it. Sometimes it was helping with laundry, sometimes it was helping with farming, sometimes in the rainy season it was helping with remudding a wall that fell down or repairing a roof. But that's how they spent their weekends, and that's how they wanted to spend their weekends. This is a picture of one of the houses that I got to teach. I taught every single one of those boys, and we mudded that, one of the walls that you can't see, but it was a single dad, and he had a son who had gotten malaria, and his temperature got so high that his son now had special needs, and he also had a 3-year-old daughter, and he didn't have a teenager or someone to help. He was elderly, and these boys knew him, they knew his story, and they knew they wanted to go help him, and that there was a void made when they left for school. They also had jobs during school breaks. They had a mindset to look for what was needed in their community, and they wanted to go and fill that hole. If you talked to these kids, a lot of them wanted to be in medical professions, nurses, doctors. Some wanted to be teachers, some wanted to be lawyers, some wanted to help with deliveries or be taxi drivers because they knew that people needed to get to work. And so they saw holes and they wanted to fill them. There is a vast difference between the dream jobs of my students from Uganda and the dream jobs of my students now. In Uganda, they were thinking, what does my village need? I'm going to use village and community kind of interchangeably here, but what does my village need? There was a responsibility. They knew that they had a place and had something to offer, and I think that that's because it was expected of them from the generations above them, where it's like, you have a place here and we need you. And that's true in America as well, but I don't know if that push is as prevalent. There was a social awareness of seeing a need and knowing that they have the ability to fill the need, or they can get the knowledge to learn how to fill the need. YouGov did a survey just last year, and the top job that 13 through 17-year-olds, this isn't elementary kids, 13 through 17-year-olds want is to be a YouTuber, influencer, Twitch streamer. It was all social media related, and this graph is kind of hard to read, but 9% wanted to be YouTube influencers. Then we do have doctors and nurses. Then we have professional athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, and artists. Something that I'm noticing is that all of those are very self-focused. I do believe the American dream is a good dream, but I also think that it is communal, and it should be communal. It is not self-idolization, which that's kind of what I see when I look at this chart, where it's how can I be in the spotlight? How can I make myself great? versus how can I make myself and the people around me better and to match their potential. On the other side of the career aspect is that I see a lot of my own generation fluctuating in jobs. We don't stay in jobs for very long. There is not loyalty to a company. And I do firmly believe if you're not being treated well, absolutely stand up for yourself, but also nowhere's perfect. Your job is going to get hard. Do you have the grit and do you have the ability to work through conflict versus giving up? Also, when you do climb the corporate ladder, we're seeing in really big companies that their employees are not happy. I don't know if you know this, but I found this out during my research. Companies like Google, Coca-Cola, and TikTok have created a new C-suite executive position called the CHO, which is Chief Happiness Officer, who is in charge of making sure the employees stay happy. That's wild to me. We are not finding fulfillment even when we are climbing the corporate ladder. And I think that that's because we use each other to create that ladder instead of looking around and helping everyone get better. This has a direct relationship to education. The last graph, these kids don't think that they need high school English or Algebra 1 or US history to become an influencer. And honestly, they might not. They do need the soft skills to be able to manage their time and to be able to make good business decisions and to be able to send out invoices, but they don't see that on their phone when they're looking at it. This is cheesy, but I am a teacher. Knowledge is power, and that power is what changes your community. That power is what can push us in the right direction for the future and for that American dream to be realized. In Uganda, education is rare, which is upsetting. A lot of these, the average family has 9 children, is the average family. One of those kids will probably get to go to school, maybe. They get to go to school when their family is able to pay for it. And usually it is the firstborn son. But I would like to show you this picture. It's from one of my very first lessons in Uganda, and I was completely shocked. I had already taught in the States for a few years before going, and this level of classroom participation I had never seen. Like, there are children smiling. Look at that. There are kids smiling, they're laughing, they're having a great time. And I was genuinely shocked and almost moved to tears because these kids understand the value of the seat that they sit in. I can't convince a kid that their seat in a classroom holds weight. I can try to convince them that they need to know English, they need to be able to speak well, they need to be able to write and communicate well. But if they don't think that the seat they sit in is important, it's really hard for me to convince them of the other things. These kids also understand that their education has a direct relationship to what they're able to provide for their community. I know that this is tough, and I'm not exactly sure what the solution is, but I do think the beginning of that is shifting our focus from ourself and that self-idolization, figuring out how many likes I can get, how many times I can post, and shifting it to a focus on community. To reiterate, it does take a village. You don't have to do it on your own. You weren't made to do it on your own. So surround yourself with bookend perspectives. Find people that are older than you. Find people that are younger than you. Find people your own age that have different perspectives, that have different life experiences from different cultures, but still in America or not in America. Like, broaden your horizons and build your community. We should be thinking about what our village needs. What does my village need? And what are my gifts that can fill that hole? And if I don't have those gifts, is it something I can learn? Is it something that I can go and make myself better to then consequently make the people around me better? Which leads me to lastly, what knowledge do I need to impact my village? What do I need to learn to positively contribute to my society? Without community, the American dream is just a fantasy. And I do believe in the American dream. I do think that we can collectively become the best versions of ourselves here. I think that I know that we have a lot of opportunities that most places in the world don't. And it's hard for me to come back and watch those opportunities not be taken advantage of. So let's look to our left, look to our right, bring in the people around you, know their strengths, know their weaknesses, get vulnerable with who you're with, find your tribe, find your people, find your community, and let's make all of us better. Thank you.